Hmm. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are around the world. Welcome to Envision Racing League for round 3 of the F2 Formula Championship here at the Canadian Grand Prix. I'm Brett Evans doing solo commentary for today as we get ready for the the feature race one-shot qualifying session. The Circuit de Gilles Villeneuve is one of the most demanding circuits in terms of tyre degradation, grip management, and of course it is considered a street circuit in terms of the fact that the only mistakes will land you in the fence. It's an impressive circuit, very quick on the F1 cars. Of course, the F2 cars not as quick and don't actually race on this circuit normally, but any which way we carry on as per normal. So we start off the one-shot qualifying on the super soft tyre, oddly enough. Excuse me. Julian currently leading the things. Eddie Bettenbauer now moves to the top of the train, with Mitchell Ostanek in second place. Of course, Mitchell's had a pretty good run so far, but hasn't been able to convert completely in the championship. So he sits second in the championship behind Julian. Bo in P4. Brent P5. Izzy in 6th at the moment, and Jordan in 7th. It looks like there's going to be a bit of a ding-dong battle here as Julian and Mitch start to battle it out for the pole position honours. Of course, Bo is a pretty proficient qualifier too. Julian's just dropped down to P6, which is suggesting he and Bo have both invalidated a lap. Maybe even Eddie Bettenbauer has invalidated his lap, because he has not gone up any further than 5th. So no, he is actually he's actually made a mistake. So he's actually a lot further back than the rest of the field. Jordan Dittmer currently P4. Izzy could be on for another P3 start, which would be her second of the season, and it would keep up a consistency of the top 5 qualifying. In fact, she's actually just moved up to P2, as I think Julian's invalidated. So Mitchell's going to take pole position. Izzy is going to be on the front row. This is going to be very interesting for the feature race. Of course, the sprint race now, we're not so certain how the grid formation goes in terms of that. And apparently Izzy's asking the question, which one of you guys did the rain dance? I'm guessing the feature race or the sprint race is going to feature some rain, so that's going to be a very interesting perspective. But there we go. So Mitchell Ostanek takes pole position for the feature race. Izzy on P2, so the first female driver to secure a front row start in Envision Racing League, and pretty much you can say Transnation Esports history too, considering that this is the rebirth of the league. Jordan Dittmer in a commendable P3, Eddie Bettenbauer will be 4th, then it will be the 3 Dutchies of Brent, Bo and Julian at the back, having all invalidated their lap times. So Izzy points out that it is going to rain either in the feature race or the sprint race. We don't know. Now, as I said, the sprint race, we thought initially, or Guy Tasker and I thought initially it was a reverse of the qualifying results for the feature race, but then, of course, last week at Silverstone, it was a completely different grid. So we are thinking that it has got to be a random grid for the for the first sprint race. Maybe the second sprint race has some sort of other feature to it as well. Obviously we don't do 2 sprint races. Based on the time that these actually finish out, the idea of a second sprint race in season 2 might not be completely out of the question, as we now go through the TKA media starting grid for the sprint race. Now, in a strange circumstance, it does look like it is the reverse grid of the feature race qualifying. So I don't know what entirely has happened in... Oh, this is even weirder. So everyone is starting on the soft tyre, despite the fact that there is rain on the circuit. So I don't know what the game's thinking in terms of the management of this, but it does look like I set it wrong last week. I don't actually understand how that works, but yeah, this is going to be an interesting turn of events as we go through the grid lineup. So Julian will be on pole position, having qualified at the back. Now see, this is where I sort of draw the line on where things play out in terms of qualifying for the sprint race. If it is meant to be a reverse qualifying of the race, or the feature race qualifying, those who invalidate their laps shouldn't start at the front. They should actually start at the back, as opposed to the fact that they did not set a qualifying lap. So virtually for the sprint race, they get a benefit for not being able to set a representative lap time. So I find that to be a bit biased, but anyway, so Julian on pole position, Bo in P2, then it's Brent P3, so the 2 MP Motorsport Dalaras on the first and second row. Then it's Eddie Bettenbauer, the one and only ART for today's race. In fact, we only got one Premier as well, with Roscoe Armour looking to have missed his alarm from the looks of it. The Australian obviously trying to manage that out. Jordan Dittmer in the Charal, Izzy Crean in the high-tech, and then Mitchell Ostanek, the pole sitter for the feature race, in the Dams in position 7. So this is going to be a very interesting first opening stanza with, of course, rain on the circuit and the track wet, but the cars, all the drivers are starting on the soft tyre. So we're not seeing... We're going to see if the track is even worthy enough to be on a dry tyre as the lights build up and go out, and we are underway for the sprint race of the championship. And Brent actually had a really good start, and Julian just unable to get the power down, so it's an MP12 in fact, but Brent's now just gone completely straight ahead at turn 1, so something's gone weird there. We'll just check for wing damage. Nothing out of the ordinary or on the apparent, so something's gone really strange there for him to just drive off at turn 1. So Bo leads them through with Julian in second. Then it's Eddie Bettenbauer in third. both Mitchell and Izzy have made up 2 positions from the start to be positions 4 and 5. Jordan 6, and then Brent makes up the rear. Now, as I said, with the conditions as they are, it's going to be interesting to see if there's very much grip in the way of things, or if we're going to expect to see some of these guys dive in for a set of, well, what would be wet tyres, because obviously at this point the F2 cars don't have an intermediate set. So there's a battle brewing here between Addy and Mitchell here. Mitchell's obviously got a bit more pace at the moment. Probably comes down to how much weaving and warming of the tyres the drivers did in the formation lap to get the tyres up to speed and whatnot. Izzy's got a watching brief just behind in 5th, but the top 2 have sort of spread out from the field. Mitchell's going to try and go around the outside of Addy towards the wall of champions, and there was a bit of a contact there, but Addy slots back into position, takes P4 and goes a little bit wonky coming out of the corner. So we got Brent coming into the pits now. Whether that's for a wing change or I think there was some primary contact. Yeah, it looks like there was wing damage, so I think there must have been some primary contact there between him and Julian at the start, and that could be why he went straight ahead, because he just couldn't turn the car in. Now, actually, sorry, I was meant to look at, yep, he's getting wet fitted on, so obviously a safety car would bring him back into the game, but the question does lie in, is the track wet enough to be able to function wet tyres? And, you know, at this point in time, anyone who pits now could be in for a shot, especially with the undercut effect. If the track's wet enough for wet, I would take the gamble, pit in, get on the wets, and then get out and circulate, because if the track's expected to stay like this, then obviously the tyre tyre grip's going to be non-existent for the soft runners, and they're just going to lose time. So it's going to be interesting to see, as it actually looks like a safety car has now been brought out, but of course that's actually for Brent, so Brent's actually put it in the wall just coming out of the Vettel corner, so I would say probably lost the rear end coming out of there. Pretty easy to do. It's very easy to lose the rear end. Now, what do we got? We've got Mitchell, who gets a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pits, but nevertheless, we've got a one and only blinker in the field, so Mitchell elects to jump onto, we would assume, no, he's got wing damage as well, but he's jumping back onto another set of soft tyres, so that's going to be interesting to say the least. I would have thought someone else would have taken the gamble to maybe jump onto the hards, the wet tyre, but I'm guessing they still don't think that the track is wet enough to condemn the need to be on the wet tyre. So current race order in the sprint race formation is Bo in P1, Julie in P2. They haven't really changed positions. Well, actually, sorry, Bo has changed position from the start. Eddie Bettenbell in 3rd place, Izzy in P4, Jordan P5, and then Mitchell with a 5-second time penalty for speeding in the pits. He's in P6 with a repaired front wing. So it was a pretty stagnant start in terms of things. Obviously, there was contact between Julian and Brent at the start, which prompted the MP Motorsport car to go off at turn 1. And then there's been a subsequent incident, I'm guessing that would be between Addy and Mitchell, which has forced Mitchell to come into the pits to surface a new front wing. Now, like I said, I would think that actually what we're going to do is we're going to ride on board with Bo and just have a look at the condition. So there's obviously not much of a spray going on, but that is also on the account that the cars aren't really going fast enough to generate a spray. But from the scheme of things, I don't know if Izzy is about so that she can actually confirm or deny that the rain is expected to stay active for the whole race, or if it's going to dry up. In fact, in saying that, I'm just having a look, it does look like it's gonna... Jeff said no to wet, so is he saying that the track is expected to dry, or is it expected to stay as it is? Because to me, to the idea that you wouldn't be asked to switch to the wets is mystifying, unless of course the idea is that the track is going to expect to be drying up at some point. So it's expected to stay as is. So I'm guessing that's a light rain on the guessing scale of it. So rain's not going to get heavier, but I would have thought conditions would have been deteriorating. Although I suppose now, considering that the drivers are all hauled up behind the safety car and their tyres are getting cold, especially Bo, who's not really weaving or anything like that. So not many drivers are looking at heating up their tyres, which honestly, and it does show, not having warm tyres can prove to be catastrophic. And if there was one thing that said anything in motion, safety cars breed safety cars. But sometimes you can be a bit unfortunate and not. So it can go any which way. But anyway, lap 5 of 14 of the sprint race, and there's still a question mark that hangs over the balance of the conditions of the track with the wet weather, as there's a change for position. I think Eddie's just accidentally overtaken Julian there. Now, actually, while we have a spare moment, I figure I'll give people a bit of an insight on what's been said and done about F122. So we do know that crossplay and cross-platforming is going to be on the platform. Crossplay will be coming in a lot later. So the Envision Racing League committee or CEOs decided that Season 3 will be our official launch of the cross-play league function. So Season 2 will be strictly console still, and then it will move to cross-play hopefully for Season 3 if the opportunity for the cross-play is there by then. Of course, the 2022 cars, new tracks, and all different kind of features, the manual formation lap, the manual pit stops. It's going to bring a real big element to the event, and of course those things will be on, of course, but I'll get more into that if we have a second safety car or if we have a lull in the race. So we have got just under 8 laps left to go. In fact, there will be 8 laps left to go after the completion of this one, and Bo will lead them off in the restart, and he goes pretty early, so catches Julian off guard a little bit. In fact, Eddie might find himself with a bit of a chance to snap up Julian coming into turn 1 as we go green for the second time, and Izzy has got a pretty good watching brief of Eddie as he tries to muscle his way around the Prema, the championship points leader, mind you, as it looks like a piece of a car dismembered itself from someone's car. I can't quite tell who that might have been, as Mitchell looks like he's going to size up a move on Izzy, but now keep in mind that Mitchell now has 8 seconds worth of penalties to his name because of a corner cutting penalty he just incurred on the restart. And Izzy looks like, I don't know, I thought Izzy was initially giving up the position, but Jordan's disconnected through all this, but Izzy's going to contest into the I don't know what that corner is actually called, but anyway, so the top 3 have now sort of spread out with Izzy in Mortal Kombat. In fact, whoa, she absolutely misses her brake marker, or if that was intentional there to allow Mitchell through. Actually a good strategy there by Izzy to allow Mitchell through and use him to catch back up to the back of the field. Jordan's car glitching. In fact, Izzy's coming back on Mitchell heading into the Wall of Champions. This is not the most ideal place you want to be making an overtake, so wonder what's going on there. It seems Izzy's pace seems to fluctuate in certain sectors, because at one point through sectors 1 and 2 Mitchell had the edge on her as she goes immensely wide. So I'm thinking now this is where I pointed out that maybe pitting onto the wet tyres would be a masterclass strategy, because it looks like everyone now is starting to struggle on the soft tyres as they play through. Now, Bo's got himself a nice, comfortable lead as Guy Tasker now joins us in the commentary box. So, come colour me surprised a little bit, Guy. I thought the missus was calling.
I made a special exemption just for you, Brett.
Fair enough. So, I don't know if you've been watching the stream to catch up yourself, but we're currently...
I have been watching for the past couple minutes.
Alright, cool. So I don't need to fill you in too much, but yeah, this is a very strange race at the moment in which that the drivers are all on dry tyres on a wet track, and it's been like that from the very start. So it definitely now looks like they're starting to suffer a little bit in these wetter conditions. It does look like the track's actually gotten a bit wetter over the course of the last couple of laps, and the sliding is now more apparent than ever before. By the way, congratulations on the podium for this morning's race.
Thank you very much. It was a case of, well,
survival of the fittest.
Yeah, I was going to say, what's the way to win the race? To finish first you have to finish. That's the one. I was trying to think of that for a while. I was quite happy with it, to be honest, for the first race on the wheel, but I'm pleased we didn't have conditions like we're seeing here, because I don't fancy these conditions. I
just don't. I mean, I don't mind the wet, but to drive the wet on soft tyres, and as I was pointing out, I honestly thought that under the safety car, I thought someone would maybe take a gamble and just chuck on the wets and see if the pace is there. I mean, it's a sprint race; it's only worth half points, so you don't lose it.
Yeah, I'm thinking something like that for Izzy or Jordan, a little bit off the back there would make sense. Really, take that gamble and see what happens.
So with just under 6 laps left to go, Bo still only holds a 6 or just under second lead as he gets into the hairpin, then just loses it under traction a little bit, and which is interesting considering Bo uses traction. The field is actually bunched up, and DRS actually is still activated through all this.
Wow.
You just cut out there, Guy, a little bit there. I don't know.
Apologies, headphones being a bit weird.
And Bo picks up the fastest lap of the race. Mitchell then easily eclipses that because Mitchell is the one on the back foot, having 8 seconds of penalties for speeding in pit lane and for 1 corner cut penalty. Now, okay, so Izzy's taking the gamble here. So this could pay off in a sense, because I don't think a safety car necessarily will put it into perspective, because unless someone makes a big mistake. But what will happen is that if she can circulate and do some pretty good numbers, I mean, what's our current fastest lap of the race? It was a 26.4. So if she can beat that...
Yeah, I'm just riding on board, and I don't know, personally I think it does look a little bit too... I think maybe Inters would have been a more realistic shout. It doesn't look heavy enough for
it is unfortunate though, because you can't get intermediates on the F2 cars. It's only dries or full course wets.
Sorry, I'm being an idiot yet again. So yeah, that's a challenging one. But as you say, if you can just stick out a few laps and see if it's gonna.
And it's worth the risk anyway, because
exactly, nothing to lose. She's lost 1 position, but that's not the end of the world, really.
And Jordan still technically is a reserve, so she will make up 1 more position on that. As Bo is just collected the wall of champions. I don't know if he's picked up any damage from it, but he's certainly coming under a lot of pressure from the championship points leader. Eddie actually having a very consistent race at the moment. And yeah, Mitchell probably isn't too intent on trying to overtake people, because he knows that he's going to lose those positions anyway. He does still hold the fastest lap of the race. Now, we'll go back and see what Izzy's like, and actually what we'll do for people watching.
I've been riding on board just for the last few corners, and it's for this lap really, and it's not too bad, but the pace doesn't seem... I think it just needs to be ever so slightly more wet for the tyres to have that much of an advantage.
So we are riding on board with her now. We're going to do a virtual lap on board. So we're just watching for traction and for steering input. So traction does seem very, very touchy at this point. The turning capabilities doesn't seem too bad. So it's probably on that threshold where it's not the best, but it's not hurting her in terms of much. Actually, sorry, I just ended up going back to Jordan there. But let's have a look at the gap between her and Jordan. I don't know if Jordan's in the lobby or not.
It's gone up by roughly a second and a half over the past 2 laps or so, a lap and a half now.
Oh, just in the nick of time. We've got a battle here for the lead.
Oh, so we do.
Julian up the inside. It's going to turn into the outside. That's probably going to be a bit more grippier. But Bo manages to hold on.
Bo got great traction out of that corner.
Which you would when you're running traction, but
that does help.
There was something I was going to say just a minute ago, but now it's completely slipped my mind. But oh right, so yeah, so for Izzy, she can write this off because it will be a P5 finish, which I think is her best finish of the season, which would be the best finish I think of her career, at least in ERL T&E sense. But she also does start on the front row for the feature race, so she's got a chance to put some good points on the table if she can get a good start. Of course, Mitch's starts have been pretty below average as far as I've seen from the past 4 races. Of course, as we go into Season 2, the interesting thing that will probably be worth asking the question for people who are watching and for the input in the comment section or in the chat: do you think for Season 2 the sprint races for the F1 cars are necessary?
I think they'd be, I don't know, I'd be interested to see how they go. I think they'd be a little bit fun anyway for us. I wouldn't say they're necessary, but and Julian has messed up the final chicane there, and it's given Mitchell a run.
Yeah,
although with those penalties, in the grand scheme of things, it's not going to matter massively.
Okay, so just got a comment from Izzy, who I guess paused to make the comment. Wets are not it. So yeah, it's a very it's like I say, it's a touch and go situation. You just sort of, you got to figure it out by taking a risk, taking a gamble. As long as you don't put it in the fence and call it a day, sort of thing. I would say compared to when the race started, it was definitely more efficient to have tried using the wets. In saying that, I haven't seen a call for the the DRS to be inactive, so maybe that was probably the better call. But I just don't think I'd ever want to be in a position like this. And it's quite common with the F2 cars, actually, in particular. I think it seems more like a glitch than it is an actual weather system.
Yeah, I think they're normally on these games the DRS being disabled. Sorry, is generally the telltale sign that it's switching to wets is the faster.
Bo's just picked up a 3-second penalty, and I just see an end plate, and there's an end plate flying down the circuit, which is his. So
that's huge. Being more than a second clear and still pushing it, he might live to regret that, because Julian at the moment. Julian's at the moment.
How he managed to pull that one out, but Eddie's going to go up the inside, because I think the incentive for Eddie now is that he's now in a position to fight for the race win. So he's not
fight for P3 could be for the win,
unless of course Julian picks up a penalty, which based on his current pace advantage, he looks like he is taking a few more liberties coming through.
Yeah. Although that being said, I think he got through the whole of the F1 race without picking up a penalty, so he obviously knows where the limits are on this track.
As Jordan comes back into the server. But yeah, the interesting thing about it is that for Bo, it's not necessarily, it's just a matter of trying to keep the car into a position. But what's going to happen here is going to be the interesting telling part, is that what is Mitchell going to do? Because he can't really benefit from this in any shape or form, but are you gonna take a risk and make a move? And he's going for it. He backs out, but of course
I guess I think probably his best bet is just to try and kind of force Bo into a mistake here and try and just put some pressure on him and hopefully locks a brake or clips the wall.
Well, he's ensuring that he's going to retain the fastest lap at least by doing another fastest lap there, and that would have been accounted by DRS as well. So we're going to go this is the battle for the on-track race win. Of course, the effective race win is still anyone's
guess. It could be close, because Julian's dropped back a little bit after that moment he had. He's actually 2.2 down, so if Bo can pull 0.8 of a second, he's clipped the wall though. It's going to be a big ask to pull that much out in the rest of the lap. So.
And in saying that too, the track has actually significantly dried up in the last...
Massively.
So... yeah, I guess in the end of things... oh, and Addy picks up the penalty, so that's game over for Addy, but that's going to still be at least P3.
P3, yeah.
Unless Bo can pick up another penalty on the last corner, so that's one threat from Julian removed, but, I mean... will Addy still take the position anyway? Because if he can get through and Julian gets a penalty...
Mitchell might force him into defending him. Mitchell's gonna... no, not quite.
Yeah,
close.
I don't think you do anything
Mitchell
stupid like that.
Throw it.
Oh, but Addy and Julian... Julian picks up a penalty,
and
so...
that's cost him the race win.
So Bo will take the race victory.
Julian losing out on the final corner.
Well, you just wouldn't... you'd just be kicking yourself for that one. So from what was going to be race victory now has to settle for P2 as Bo takes the sprint race honours. Mitchell does drop to P4. Jordan will take P5, but of course being a reserve, and I'm not 100% sure that he's actually completed for 75% of the race as a driver, he will be classified... well, he won't be classified now. Let's have a look at Izzy's car at the moment. So, on wet tyres on now what is a dry track, which, it's like I say, you just couldn't... it was sort of a do-or-die situation for Izzy. And it didn't work, but it's still points, it's still consolidation, and there is wing damage on her car, but beyond that, she's going to cross the line P5, and she's going to be entering the next race on the best start. Yeah. I don't suppose you managed to get in by spectator, did you? Or did you just...
no, it didn't give me the choice. Oh, wait, no, I should have pressed triangle, shouldn't I?
Yeah. So, yeah, just the same thing. That was just something from what Jordan said in the chat. But...
oh, well.
We're respectable.
I can, I'll find a place to retire.
So...
I don't really know how to do that without bringing out them.
I suppose if you did it... well, no, doing it in the pits would take too long.
I don't know if doing it in the pits messes up like it used to.
Yeah, no. I remember that one. God, that's going back to season...
we had so many issues.
Oh, season 2.
So funny.
Okay, so for people that want to know what that one's about, season 2 in particular, F1 2018, I want to say it was. There was a glitch.
Could have been.
There was a glitch in the game that if anyone retired in the pits, basically it would...
the next person,
yeah, it would freeze...
the next person who came in got stuck.
Yeah, because the game believed that because they retired in the pits, they were being serviced. So if it generally happened to the driver or the team that was behind the retired car, so if it was a I think back then I was in the Toro Rosso. I can't remember who but yeah, whenever it happened, it was always the car. But I think it was the Williams. So when Williams would DNF, the Toro Rossos would get stuck in the pits because the game just continually thought that there was a Williams coming through the transit lane. And it took us a wee while to work that one out. And then we had an interesting glitch at Russia where one of the drivers started on a puncture.
Oh, I missed the days of
the completely broken ones. I mean, we still get our odd glitches here and there, but at the moment it's not... they're not as game-breaking or as, head-scratching as they used to be. But in any which case, the formation...
where is going to be the best place? Can I do it on the formation lap? No, I can't.
No.
Retire on the formation lap.
So our TKA Media starting grid for the feature race has Mitch in pole position and Izzy Crean, her best qualifying of her career, in P2. And she's going to be the only driver starting on the super soft tyre, so she's going for a completely different strategy, going hard and going fast right from the word go. Will it pay off? Jordan Dittmer with a career best qualifying in P3. Eddie Bettenbauer will be in 4th. He had a moment in the qualifying spun, not sure where, but that put him behind the 8 ball. But he is in with a shot for a chance of a feature race glory. He hasn't had a race win since his championship winning season in F1 2020. I believe that was season 6. Brent, Bo and Julian are the bottom 3 that did not set a time in the qualifying session. And then of course we got Guy Tasker in the back who
I've got it on pause, but I've got fallen a long way behind everyone here, so
clear sky conditions, 20 laps, and every driver -1 on the soft tyre, the hardest compound of the racing format. Oddly enough, once upon a time there used to be 3 tyre compounds per race, and you actually had to be forced into it. So Jordan's car is very badly lagging in terms of movement. So Izzy with the call of saying got to try something, which is a very interesting strategy method to put into perspective. We got a case of porpoising on the grid. Jordan's car is porpoising. That's actually one thing I've noticed about F1 22 so far, is that I haven't seen much display of porpoising in the cars, but that will be a subject for when we go into safety cars or other perspectives as the lights now build up for the start of the Grand Prix. What are we going to see in terms of things? It's lights out and away we go, and there's a Primer in the back has gone absolutely nowhere. Izzy is going to contest into turn 1, and she actually gets into the lead of the race. So Izzy Crean takes the lead. Mitchell slots into 2nd. Addie gets up to 3rd. Jordan's gone down 1 spot as they filter through into turn 3. It's the Irish woman of Izzy Crean leading them off. Then Mitchell, Addie, Jordan, Bo, Brent, Julian, and of course, we just wait for Guy to make his way around to pit lane.
I'm going to go into the pits, yeah.
And he will retire there. So, as they filter through, everyone single file. Jordan's already left the session, so his car's going to go further back. But surprisingly, despite that, his car's already got a 1.6 second lead over Bo, as Mitchell now is going to try and force the issue onto Izzy. Heading into the hairpin, Izzy doesn't even cover, actually, and Eddie fancies himself an opportunity to go up the inside, but doesn't get the job done. So as they now go down the back straight, reaching speeds of roughly about, hang on, I'll just pull up the telemetry, roughly about 300 kilometers an hour. So these F2 cars aren't too far away from the actual top speed pace of the F1 cars. As Izzy, and Mitchell's actually just run into the back of Izzy and taken some front wing off. So Izzy's line into the Wall of Champions is slightly obscuring, and because he was so far back, he just wasn't able to filter back in, and contact was made. So Izzy in a very strong position here, and I'm sure she'll be just trying her hardest to keep that pace up. Just doesn't have quite the traction out of the corners as Mitch does, and that's usually what comes down to the differences between traction control and no traction control. A lot of people sort of sit there and wonder which is better to have. Well, it can go one of either which way. When you look at certain tracks with slower corner entries, having traction is probably more ideal. But when you've got these faster corners where you've got to plant the foot down, having traction off is probably more ideal. Oh, that's going
to double move up the inside.
Oh, I think Izzy saw. Yeah, Izzy saw it coming and just gave.
It's Addie, not Mitchell. Sorry, I'm an idiot.
Yeah, Addie just gave him. Izzy gave Addie a wide berth. Oh, she's in the. That was a hard clobber in the wall.
I don't know what on earth happened there. Oh, Mitchell's round. Oh,
I think Izzy lost. I think Izzy.
What?
She lost control.
No, Izzy's okay.
She hit the wall at high speed and then... Yeah, she hit the wall at high speed and then just...
Yeah.
Lost control.
And then I think that her and Mitchell were going side by side through the final chicane, and that's a recipe for disaster. And Mitchell's lost out there. Ended up in the wall of champions.
Luckily, he got away with it in terms of the fact that he didn't pick up any additional damage. Oh, Izzy's controller disconnected.
Ah, I see.
So, yeah, so that's just the primary... It's one of those things, and I suppose that's probably for you, given your first race on the wheel, that's probably the one thing you don't have to worry about so much.
This is true.
It does, unfortunately, undo a lot of Izzy's hard work there, but for Addy at the moment, it's given him a complete mile lead over the rest of the field. Of course, Jordan disconnected, so that's why we can't see the intervals, but there is wing damage from Mitchell's car, but that's of course on the account of the first lap melee. I would say as something's happened to Julian there. He's just dropped 2 positions. Is he in? Does Mitch follow? No, he doesn't. So Mitch thinks he can handle this as Brent and Julian go side by side into here. This is usually a recipe for disaster. They still go side by side. Yeah. Still contact. Still wheel to wheel. And they're still going at it.
Some great side by side racing.
Now, who has the DRS?
Julian. Brent got very sideways coming out of that corner.
As they filter through, so Addy has a 3.1 second lead over Bo, and then Julian, who's now managed to actually sort of just keep himself ahead, is in P3. As I say, is his championship points leader. He obviously will consolidate that after a pretty strong result in the sprint race, despite the fact that his chances of winning a race were scuppered at the last corner on the last lap, as Brent now fancies a move up the inside of the chicane. That's never a good place to try and... Honestly, when you... I mean, you can make the move done. It's not impossible, but you've just got to be able to be... You actually got to be a lot further up than pretty much right at the corner. So you don't want to be making moves. And this is probably one of the conceptions that a lot of people don't understand about the racecraft of drivers. What's considered an overtake, what's considered a dive bomb. Now, just give me a minute here to clear my throat. Julian, I think, just grabbed the fence just there coming out of the Vettel corner. But so an overtake is when you make a move that would be roughly about 100 meters before the corner entry. So you've got to be up the inside of the driver by about the 100 meter mark. That's probably what I would call a late move, but it would be acceptable. A dive bomb is literally when you're coming out of the draft right on the corner, or you basically carry a shit ton more speed coming down into the corner where the other driver's braking. So like here, so now he's out of the draft, he's going to go up the inside and the job is done. But earlier he was doing moves that would be more considered a dive bomb, as Addy has picked up a 3-second time penalty in that skirmish. Now, why has... Oh, Jordan's just been overtaken by Mitch there, although for some strange reason... Oh no, it's fixed itself. When I was highlighting Jordan, it was showing me Mitch's car. Izzy in the comments saying she is extremely mad. Completely understandable.
It's always mad.
So we were talking about the sprint race function for F1 22 in terms of the F1 cars, the sprint qualifying format. So you said it wouldn't be so bad. Just explain to the viewers your thoughts on... explain to the viewers your thoughts on the sprint qualifying format for possible for 22.
I'm kind of thorn on it. I don't personally. I'm not a fan of it myself, just because I feel like it detracts a little bit from the main event, the main race on the Sunday. But equally, do I still watch it? Yeah, and I still enjoy it. It's good fun to watch, but as I say, I'm a bit of a traditionalist, I guess, and I prefer the main event on Sunday, and I don't like anything detracting from that. And the whole business around that they had last season, and this whole who gets pole kind of thing, pole not going to the guy who finishes first in qualifying, was a bit weird, but yeah, I don't know. And then I think it'll be fun on the game. I feel like, extra bit of racing and kind of a real sprint, and it'd be interesting to see how the other ones go this year, because I think in the new cars, hopefully, they seem to be able to follow a bit closer, so there'll be a little bit more action packed. Whereas last year it was just kind of a procession.
Yeah, well, I found that the newer cars, they reckon they follow closer, but they do also seem to be a lot more liable to crashing due to getting on the curbs and then losing all that downforce. So
yeah,
it's going to make
I have to say, one thing I'm not a fan of this year, is the inability to undercut. The tyre warm-up is so long that, I don't know, I feel like it's really detracting from some of the race strategies that we're seeing. I think, I don't know, maybe that's just a personal opinion. I like the excitement before of who's going to come out first from this set of pit stops, but now it's kind of you've got to wait a few laps to see, I think.
I suppose that was one of the sort of the catch-22 systems when you put it down to it, because people were complaining about the lack of racing for position, and rather the races were determined by the pit stop strategy. So I guess maybe by doing it the other way, yeah, you get better racing, but of course you lose the pit stop strategy. And of course refueling is never going to be back on the cards for obvious reasons. But yeah, I think it's gonna be interesting in terms to see what the game produces. I've seen a lot of footage from Arava and TRL not TRL Limitless. There's another person I watch. I can't remember what his name is. He's an esport driver, but yeah, it's showing some good promise in terms of things, and the cars do look like they're going to be a lot harder to drive. So you're not going to be able to use your experiences on this game to full effect, which I think is going to shape up. It'll definitely switch the pecking order, I think, a fair bit. So I'm quite interested to see what it goes. And of course, we're still waiting to see if there's a beta happening for it. Bo's picked himself up a penalty while we've been discussing this, and Mitch is taking to the pits. This time he manages to get in early, so without picking up a time penalty. Jordan picks up a 3 seconds, so I'm guessing he's back in his car. But yeah, so one of the things I'm most interested to see will be, who sort of adapts to these new cars quicker, and what comes out of it in terms of the racing aspect. Of course, as we said, cross-play is going to be part of it, so eventually we'll have Xbox players and PC players taking part in the league as well. We did have a PC league on its works, but lack of motivation from their side sort of put that on ice. But now that we can incorporate them into a PlayStation lobby, basically, it'll be easier to manage them. So this battle between Brent and Julian keeps heating up. Now, I don't know what's happened to Eddie in these last couple of laps, and bang, that's Bo in the fence.
He's almost reversed back onto the racing line there.
That was
a circle round into the pits.
Yeah, it was pretty much he tried to make a move up the inside of Eddie at the worst possible moment, side by side into all the champion chicane. Just wasn't gonna end well, and I think Bo just mounted the sausage curve on the outside, and it just flung him into the sideways into the wall. So that's cost him. But as I was just pointing out, something had happened to Eddie, because that 3 second gap just vanished.
Yeah.
So
must have had a moment.
Yeah, it must have been a pretty big one too. But in any which case, he still has a 3.9 second lead over the field, and now with Bo pretty much out of the picture with that spin, That's gonna... It's actually put him in just rough close proximity to Mitchell, so the two drivers caught in the melee. There's a yellow flag at sector 3, which is the chicane. There's no damage on Izzy's car. She was the last driver to go through it, so...
Yeah, that seems to be permanently out at the moment. I'm confused. Maybe it's just the debris on the track thing from the incident, or maybe it's glitched. I'm not sure.
Let's have a look. Who we got on the track coming towards it? So
Julian and Brent.
Looking back, I don't see anything.
Gone through, and it's gone green. There you go. So it's gone green as they've gone through. So it must have just been a kind of a simulation of some debris on the track, I think.
Yeah, it could have been just, or it could have been something that was just glitching, and they had to wait for the leaders to come through to sort it out. So
yeah.
Their battling is still going on quite extensively. They're separated by half a second. DRS obviously inactiveness. So Mitchell's obviously trying something different. Bo's pit was basically preemptive. He didn't really have a choice. Well, actually, I suppose that's not true. He did have a choice. But yeah, so with F122 coming out, obviously there's going to be a lot of vindication. And now I remember what we were talking about. There's supposed to be the idea was there's meant to be a beta. But if I'm not mistaken, the last time they had a beta for a game, the beta was definitely a lot earlier than this. We're almost...
I think the beta would have been out by now.
Yeah, we're almost on the verge of a month to go before the release of the game. In fact, if you get the Champions Edition, it is almost a month to go. So I don't think there is a beta for this game this season, and I think... Because EA, I know Codemasters usually have a pretty lenient policy towards allowing beta testing, which, same set of rules.
Yeah.
You don't leak anything, you don't tell your friends anything. I don't know what EA is like in terms of...
EA generally are not big on handing out or dishing out betas. From what I've been able to tell, I think that's probably why a lot of their games come out so broken in the first place. But no, I don't believe they really hand out beta codes and things, because from my experience, FIFA and the NFL and those other sports games made by EA, I don't think really tend to have the beta for FIFA does have. Oh, Brent's just had a moment. So there is a beta for FIFA sometimes. I think there quite often is, but it seems quite limited on who they release it to. So yeah, that's what I know. So it looks like we might be having a little bit of a scrap here, but oh no, Julian's got a bad exit off the hairpin.
Yeah, so I am wondering about that. So if we don't have a beta, that obviously takes away a lot of pre-tension advantage that a lot of people would get, because obviously some people get it, some don't, and it gives those...
That being said, the times that I had the beta for F1 in the past, the game was totally different by the time it actually came out, and it was basically no advantage at all, because it was like playing a different game. Yeah,
I suppose it depends on how much input you're getting from the game. So if people are just getting the beta just to play it, then you're not getting as much input, so the game doesn't change that much, which then gives you set advantage. But if you're actually giving it to people legitimately who are trying to actually find the best performances possible to give the best racing experience you can possibly get with a game, then yeah, naturally it's going to change. And you do get, after a while, you do get these Brent's car is sliding all over the show. Those rear tyres are...
I think those tyres might be heading off the cliff now. It seems to be sliding a lot.
But so I don't think there is going to be a beta based on this information, or if there is, it's going to be a really very quick window of information. But I think what they're doing, they're just giving it to all the big shot gamers like Arava, Tia McMardick, Opmere and all that, because they know what they want from the game. They know what the viewers want from the game. So, I
agree. I think that might be what they're doing with the beta codes this year. Yeah, and Brent is into the pits.
Although the one thing that... as he picks up a 5-second. The one thing I wouldn't cater too much to the idea of is Arava likes the entertainment aspect of his content. So he wants things that more allow him to present his videos to a dramatic degree. I mean, he's very fixed on my team. He was very fixed on that My Driver thing, which then became my team. I'm still curious to this day to know what AI he's running, because to me, his transgression from backfield car to championship contending was just too quick. And saying that, Team McMartick's wasn't that much better, but we know that Team McMartick's the corner cutting king, so... Anyway, we've prattled on a fair bit, but I suppose that's been for good reason. The race has sort of spread out a fair bit. Izzy now up to P6 after Jordan now comes into the pits. Izzy's obviously on the opposing strategy to everyone else because of her tyre management. DXT Cogwheel. Oh, okay.
I was going to say, who's this?
That's a name from the past. That's Richard Underwood from New Zealand, so got another Kiwi.
Here we go, so Julian into the pits now, and I think Brent has probably done enough to stay ahead on track, but obviously those penalties are going to prove a bit of an issue for him come the end of this.
Well, let's have a look. So, Julian's now being released, Eddie's being released, Brent is just about to hit the last corner. The undercut effect, now Eddie gets onto the power, of course. Now you've got to take into the fact that turn 1 is non-existent for the pit exit, so Brent is actually that is quite an undercut there from Brent. So
yeah, it's about he's gained 2 seconds at least. Yeah, about 2 seconds he's gained on that.
Keep in mind that, of course, these drivers have all elected to, looking at the time, I'm under the impression that, and was that Eddie in the fence?
He did give the ball a kiss. I'm not sure if he's got any damage from it though.
I didn't see anything fly off, but if he did get wing damage, it's probably that...
He's really pushing it on this lap, I tell you that. He's got close to the ball several times now.
Yeah, it looks like his car's alright, although if there's a little tiny chip in the... No, it looks like he may have gotten away with that, but that was too close for comfort for him. The one thing that I suppose, as I was trying to say, the drivers were definitely out a lot longer on that stint than normal, because I would assume that the pit window would have opened maybe about lap 11, maybe even lap 10. So, although... No, that wouldn't be right either, because then you're saying that the super softs have a equal tyre range as the softs, so maybe this is the pit window, but I would have been probably more inclined to pit earlier based on the amount of sliding. So for Brent, that one lap has made a huge amount of difference in terms of pace and grips. So that's where we're seeing the huge drop in gap between him and Eddie. The only encountering difference is that Eddie has a 3-second penalty, but Brent has a 5. So Brent has to overtake him and then pull 5 seconds, which pull 2 seconds, I should say. So 4 laps left to go. That's a tall order. Bo down in P5. Mitch in P4, so they've recovered all right. I mean, of course, the grid size is a bit small today, so it's not really a huge disadvantage to be offset like that. The gap between Eddie and Julian is I'm going to say about 4 seconds. 4.1. So... really, for me, Eddie just needs to stay calm, just stay composed. He doesn't need to battle with Brent at all. If Brent gets up to the rear of him, just let him go and then stay with him, although that's gonna put a spanner in the works. So now Eddie has to finish 6 seconds ahead of Julian and a second ahead of Brent, so Eddie now needs to push very hard. So, what a way to turn the commentator system. I'm not going to call that the commentator's curse, but that's just way to make the commentator look bad.
Yeah, he's doing it on purpose just to keep it interesting.
Yeah, he's just listening to the commentary and just thinks, oh, I need to spice this up. I mean, you know, as far as it goes, the first season's always sort of like just trying to understand where you're at, where you can improve, where you can obviously try and make things better for yourself. He has pulled a pretty decent gap on Julian at the moment, but it's still not going to be enough to get the win. And at the moment he's sort of thresholding between, although let me just be sure that the penalties are actually accurate. So actually Brent does have a 8-second penalty, so that's actually means that Eddie still has this race in the palm of his hand, at least in the account of holding on to what will be second place, unless he can find 1.4 seconds, which isn't, it's not too much of an ask.
Not impossible. Julian's struggling for pace on these super soft tyres, it seems, compared to the other two.
Oh, Brent's just
found a little bit more.
Yeah, Brent just tried to use some track limits to try and get the gap in, but almost ended up flying into the wall. So you can't knock the guy for trying to get a good result in. Of course, he's got to try and pull out 8 seconds to Julian, which at the moment is well beyond happening. But what he can do is put Eddie under pressure to make a move. But
he's got to run at him,
yeah. So now, if I was in Eddie's shoes, I wouldn't be necessarily fighting this. I'd just let him go. Or they had contact there, so I'm a bit surprised that Eddie is still trying to wrestle this through. But I would just now hang back, follow him, because that's taken some time out of the. Oh, Eddie is absolutely right on the.
Brent is he's really so much slower through this sector here than. Eddie really looking like he had the speed on him now.
I'm thinking that through the first sector, obviously.
And Brent's gone sideways there.
Yeah, I'm thinking
very defensive.
It does appear to me that it looks like Brent uses his tyres quite a lot, and you know,
he's picked up to another 3 seconds there.
It gets to a point where you've got to sort of sit back and think, yeah, okay, I'm got the pace, I'm doing all this right, but I'm picking up penalties like the bejesus. So you're more than.
I mean, it's going to cost him massively. He's going to be right the way down to 4th place.
Yeah, but I suppose at the same time, he's ensuring that Eddie doesn't win. So whether that's play by the Dutchies to try and ensure, and this is going to... How did Eddie
backs out of it?
Well, he didn't.
I don't know how he didn't get a penalty. He's got DRS as well, though.
I mean, he did blatantly just cut that corner quite massively, although he was sort of escorted off as a result. But yeah, how the game didn't decide that was an excessive track extension. Yeah. Although sometimes you get these things where if you do go off the track and gain an advantage, you get a thing called what was it? Illegal time gain, and it invalidates your race lap. So it basically ensures that you don't get the fastest lap of the race, and maybe that's just something that happens closer to the end of the race. I know I had an illegal time gain in Imola, but it didn't necessarily do anything because I wasn't even close to going for the fastest lap. Although I did realise when I watched back on that Silverstone video, I was only off by 1/10 of a second. I thought I was massively off the fastest lap.
Oh, right, yeah.
But in any which case, so it looks like Julian is going to take the race win, which will help extend his championship points lead. This is interesting, as we're going to have it does it again, it happens again, and this time Eddie gets a 3 second,
and that's going to drop him another place, I think, but I think he will argue he was forced off the track there, so that's going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, so Julian takes the win, Eddie will take second. Now where does
Mitchell, I think, yeah.
Yep, Mitchell will jump into second.
Those 3 seconds did cost Eddie at the end there, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see a complaint come in from him there about that move, and let the stewards decide whether that last 3 seconds is fair or not.
and it really comes down to as well that it sort of was like, I know I generally like being controversial with these commentaries, but I'm going to do it anyway. When you're in a position like that, when you know you're not going to win the race on track and by penalties, you don't... What's happened to Izzy? She's just going slow on purpose, but you know, you don't make those kind of moves at the end of the race. You gain nothing from it. And if...
Yeah, well, I think what we've seen there, judging from what I can see, is that Brent, just trying to mess up Eddie's race, really, and he's got what he wanted there. So I think that's why he went for that move, and nothing to gain, but...
I don't know what Izzy's planning here, but, you know, Izzy, if you get disqualified, it still counts. But, so it's an interesting sort of circumstance. There's no gain from it. You compromise your situation, and, you know, if worse comes to worse and you put the person in the fence and take them out of the race, well, the stewards are going to have an extremely dim view on that, because, you know, you've blatantly ruined someone's race on the final lap, on the final corner, because, you know, something's there. But in any which case, it just means that Julian takes another race win in the feature. I think that's his second feature race win in a row. Mitchell takes another second place, which obviously keeps him in the hunt for the championship, and Eddie picks up his first podium. Now, I've just got to see what the gap is between Eddie and Mitchell. So 2 seconds. So yeah, a 3-second removal would put him back into second place, so I'm sure he will try and protest that. So on the round results, well, it's a Dutchie 1, 2, 3 with Julian, Mitch and Bo taking the honours, Eddie in 4th, Brent in 5th. In fact, actually, sorry, it's not actually a Dutchie 1, 2, 3 because Eddie and Bo are tied on points, but because Eddie finished higher placed in the feature race, he will be given P3 as a result. Izzy's unfortunate weekend puts her 7th or 6th in the points, Jordan equal to Jordan. Of course, Jordan being a reserve, and you still got 4 points somehow. I don't get how that works.
Let's go. I'm going to do pretty well in this championship.
Just turn up late
on lap 1 every time.
Yeah, just turn up late every race. But okay, sorry, I'm just having a read of the comments, but yeah. In any which case, we'll call it a day on that one. So, Canada done. Our next event, I believe, is Brazil? Brazil or Belgium, actually. I'm not sure. I'll just have a quick flick at the racing schedule. No, actually, we're off to Hungary next. The Hungarian Grand Prix, which obviously kick-started the T&E Championship nearly 5 years ago. We go back, in fact, actually, just while we're thinking about it, let's have a look. So, the Beta Test Championship, we did have Canada, we did have Hungary, we did have Belgium, which of course was the 100% race that only one person finished. Bahrain, yeah, because that was the race that you and I threw away a race win because we were too busy battling each other.
Oh, that was awful.
And yeah, so yeah, a few returning races to the start season for this. So without much more said, this is Brett Evans and Guy Tasker signing out from the Circuit des Gilles Villeneuve, and next week we will be at the racing. We'll be racing at the Hungaroring for round 4 of the championship, but of course tomorrow will be round 3 of the TCR GT7 championship at the Monza Super Sprint at the Italian Grand Prix. So we won't have Monza in the championship for F1, but you're definitely going to see it with the GD7 cars, and you can watch that footage on my stream on Twitch. So Thanks for watching, everyone, and we'll catch you next time.